It feels like the real estate industry is intentionally hiding the answer to these questions. 1. How often are there multiple offers on homes? 2. How many offers are typical? 3. How often are buyers making unconditional offers? 4. What is the average difference between a home's listing price and selling price? 5. How often are sales significantly higher than the next highest offer price and by how much? And have you clicked the like button yet? And if you are a buyer here in my market of Surrey and the Fraser Valley, you are going to want to watch this video all the way to the end, because the BCFSA, or the regulating body that governs financial planners, mortgage brokers, and yes, real estate agents like me here in my home province of British Columbia, well, they have just released their deep dive into real estate offers, as they now pertain to the buyer's right of rescission, or what is more commonly referred to as the cooling off period. And if you would like more information like this in the future, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on the happenings in Canadian real estate from a super biased real estate owner, investor, and agent like me. And please also know that if you are looking for help here in Surrey, well, you can always book a call with me right now using the link in the description below at a time that works best for you. Now, let's hop into this report that answers all of the questions that most buyers have that have gone unanswered up until now. As mentioned, this is the report just released by the BCFSA, and this is in their media section. I will link it down below in the description if you would like to read all of the fine print that I may gloss over. But this is one of the coolest reports that I have seen in absolutely ages. So I wanted to make sure I shared it here on the channel. So the BCFSA is the regulator. These are the police of the real estate agents here in BC, and I want you to know that this is then what should be considered. I know it's never considered unbiased, but this is not the industry putting out this information. If you want to go ahead and read all the background on exactly how this report works, again, it is linked down below, but I want to pop right down into the details. First off, the analysis of residential real estate sales this report, in other words, was based on 3,266 real estate transactions. There were actually 3,541 reported. However, they did scale out the unusable ones. This means that this is representing about 62% of the total 5,286 transactions that happened during the time of this report. So that means when you scale down a little bit further, they did kick out 275 of the received transactions because they don't view those as being either relevant to this particular report. Like, for instance, if it did not have something like the buyer rescission period, if it was leasehold land, they would get kicked out, or maybe it was just bad reporting and incomplete paperwork. So they were removed completely. However, this is the coolest report I've seen in a long time. You're going to love this. Multiple offer scenarios were less common in 2023 than in 2022 and in 2021. Nearly 70% of the transactions in the sample in 2023 had only one offer. So here it is right here, the exact numbers. 67% of the transactions only had one offer. 14 or almost 15% had two offers. Only 7% had three offers. 4 was 2.5%, and more than 5 offers was only 4% of the transactions, with the obvious disclaimer that it appears that 4.3%, well, they couldn't answer the question. For transactions with multiple offers in 2023, 80% of sellers accepted the highest price, which you would think is probably going to be the case. In about 10% of the transactions where the sellers accepted the highest price, the sale price was greater than the next highest accepted offer by 10%. So this is a breakdown of the problem with what they call blind bidding. Everyone thinks that every multiple offer gets you in this situation where you're overpaying by this ridiculous amount. Now, it does say that of the 80% of transactions that went into this scenario, that 10% of those were by a substantial landslide. So there is the number. There's no disputing that. Those are the facts. There was a decline in transactions with no conditions. So unconditional offers are actually coming down. Only 13% of reported transactions had no conditions. So here is 85% of transactions going on are still inserting some sort of condition, and only 13% are going unconditional. That's a very good gauge of the market for people out there. You want to see that ideally not any more than that is actually going unconditional, because those would be probably the least safe offers. That means then you've probably got about 13% where the buyer rescission period could possibly come into play. Unconditional offers were more commonly accepted in multiple offer situations. Obviously, if you have no conditions, it's a better thing for the seller, so that's why they want to move forward with it. However, it is still possible for properties to sell without conditions when the seller receives a single offer, which happens quite often, actually. We will receive offers regularly where the buyer is trying to get the price down, so they'll throw in an unconditional offer saying, hey, it's a done deal. I know it's not the price you wanted. Happens all the time. For the sample in 2023, 40% of the transactions where an unconditional offer was accepted had only one offer. That to me is an absolutely shocking number. There would be, for me, no reason to go into an offer where you weren't competing unless it was that one I just mentioned where you're trying to get the price down, which could happen. Listings were on the market longer in 2023. For the transactions in 2023 sample, the average days on market was now 39 compared to just 30 in 2022. Remember that these samples that we're taking from are across the entire province, and that days on market in my area of the Fraser Valley is actually quite a bit lower, as I'm sure it probably is in Vancouver as well. A greater share of the properties sold below their listing price compared to previous years. In 2023, 80% of transactions in the sample were sold at or below their listing price. And here's the graph to show exactly what it is. 19.5% of properties saw 5 or more percent coming off of the top. 61% of transactions, this is always the stat, 61% of transactions saw somewhere between 0 and 5% off of the asking price. Almost continuously, that number from the real estate board is somewhere between 96.5 and 98% list to sale ratio. So this doesn't surprise me at all. Only 13% of offers went less than 5% above the asking price, and more than 5% above the asking price was only 4% of transactions, with 1.3 coming in as non-applicable. All right, here, this is the good part. This gets into the buyer rescission, home buyer rescission period. There were 45 distinct rescissions reported by brokerages in the specific time frame, approximately 1% of the reported transactions. So that's a very common question I'm getting right now. How often is buyer rescission going into play? It's super uncommon. Just so you know exactly what you're dealing with there, if you get a conditional offer, you have about a 1 in 6 chance or a 1 in 5 chance of that property falling apart, meaning the buyer doesn't get their finances together, or that the deal just doesn't come together due to inspection or something else. This is way less than that. Less than 1% of the transactions actually fell apart as a result of the buyer getting cold feet. Apart from Powell River, Sunshine Coast Real Estate Board area, rescissions were reported in every real estate board in the province. The highest number of rescissions was reported by, obviously, the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board with 20. Now that we have the majority of the real estate transactions in the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, so it's no surprise there, but let's take a look at the numbers. 20 out of all the sales that happened in Vancouver over this period, only 20 rescissions from buyers where they felt like they wanted to walk away. This is the Association of the Interior Real Estate Board, BC's Northern Real Estate Board. Fraser Valley is here. You'll notice they're all 5. Now, the thing that really gets me with this particular stats is these much smaller boards, I would assume this is a way bigger percentage. So the people that are probably walking away are people in smaller towns or outside of the Metro Vancouver area at least a much higher rate. Almost half of the rescissions occurred on the 3rd day or on the last day that they are able to rescind. Just a quick note from the editing room floor here. My suspicion is with that stat that I just spoke about, where the buyer rescinds on the very last day, that is now likely the buyers using the rescission period as subject period and maybe not getting their financing. So there's a very good chance that they don't just have cold feet, that they went in unconditional and they paid the fee to kind of get conditions in when they don't have conditions. And the average rescission fee was $2,648, meaning that the average property that was being offered on was over $1 million. Based on the sample, rescissions were most common in transactions involving detached homes. I did not find that shocking at all. Detached homes accounted for 44% of rescissions, townhomes 17%, apartments and other duplex multi-dwellings 15%, residential strata lot, I don't know how that breaks out from the other two. Semi-detached here means basically a half duplex, and then there are manufactured homes. So 87% of real estate transactions still have conditions in them. Over 60% of transactions happen in that sweet spot where you're only negotiating a couple percent off of the price. Almost 70% of transactions only receive one offer, meaning most of them are not going into multiple offer situations. And when a seller did accept the highest price in a multiple offer situation, 90% of the time, the gap between the first and second place offer were less than 10%. Is this the crazy market that you thought we were in, or does it seem a whole lot more rational now that you understand the numbers? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you would like to know why I think the market is about to slow down for the summer, go ahead and watch this video.